Can an introvert be successful at creating a YouTube channel? I want to talk about that on this segment of the Gig Geezer. Usually I would say if this is your first time checking out the Gig Geezer, hey, thanks for coming by. And if you would not mind, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. But that's not really what I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about something involving really spinner/cargo van ownership, or for that matter, gig related stuff. Although I will say that I'm actually sitting in a hotel parking lot, killing time, because I actually have two catering opportunities from the same pickup location that I'm scheduled to pick up within the next 45 minutes. And the drop-off locations are located literally 10 minutes from each other. And for whatever it's worth, they both will pay a total of about $105. Again, that's not what this segment of the Gig Geezer are about. Now, I mentioned in the teaser, can an introvert come out of their shell basically and create a YouTube channel and actually succeed at it? Well, I'll put it like this. I'm not going to say that I have succeeded at it, but I have done it now. I've actually had a YouTube channel in existence for like the past 14, 15 years. I have one that's out there for that long, but I've never really put a lot of work into that channel. I have another channel that's been out for about the last 10, 11 years. And again, I've never really put a lot of work into that channel. But the Gig Geezer channel is one that I've really put a lot of work into. It's been in existence now 3 years. And again, the goal of this channel was to, the behind the scene goal with the Gig Geezer channel was to really kind of show, at least when gig food delivery work was in its heyday. So we're talking in the time era of 2020 through the first half of 2022. I wanted to show that someone in a market like Columbia, South Carolina could actually make the same type of money as people who are in the much larger markets like a Charlotte or a Dallas or a Houston or New York City. And I think I succeeded at that. And then, of course, if you have followed the Gig Geezer channel all this time, in December 2022, I transitioned into ownership and operation of a sprinter/cargo van. But behind all of that, I am an introvert. I am sorely an introvert, in that, I'll give you a good example. If I go somewhere with the queen of my life, most likely to her family and so forth, among her family, I'll say hello, all that, and then within about 10 minutes, I'm looking for some corner to hide. If they come over to our house, I'll say hello, all that, and then I'm looking for a room to adjourn to. I've never been one for the crowds. For that matter, those who know me or know of me over the decades will say that I'm pretty much a loner. And the loner part is probably a function of my just a function of how I grew up. The fact that I was a year to 2 years, maybe in a couple of cases 3 years younger than my peers, my immediate peers, my classmates. A year to 2 year difference is a big a year to 2 year disparity in age is a big difference physically when you're a kid. And so it did not help too that I was much sharper than many of my peers, at least academically. And so that just created a lot of jealousy. And so I was often castigated off. I was a cast off. Athletically speaking, I had to do way more than the most mediocre person among my peers in order to even merit a small measure of respect. And it wasn't until really when I was in high school, my 11th grade year, when I participated in track, when I actually did earn respect among my peers, my classmates. And then it was undeniable because I was winning track meets and breaking school records and among the best in my high school region. And they had to respect that. They had to respect that. And I give you a good example that the crowd that the classmates or the crowd that I was around, whenever when we were on the late bus back from the valley to the hood, you know, your classmates, your peers are some of your worst critics. And if you want a free for all to occur, hang out on that bus, because they will find a reason to pilate on you in terms of talking about you. But whenever it got around to me, they would be like, "Oh no, man, can't mess with him. I mean, he kicking ass in track. He kicking ass. He winning meets. He breaking school records. Gotta leave him alone." And that's exactly what happened. So for all those years beforehand, folk would find reason to pick on me or talk about me or just cast me off to the side. And when you outperform your peers, at least back then, they had to respect you, and that's exactly what happened. But the introvert, while I was an introvert in that regard socially, if anyone, those who know me from way back when, decades ago, might have thought that I was a ham, in that I thrived on public speaking. I had no problem talking before a crowd or a large audience, or expressing my thoughts. Never had a problem with that. So it was kind of an oxymoron, you may say, in that someone who socially would withdraw himself from people, but yet at the same time has no problem expressing himself among a group of people. In fact, one of my favorite places where I would express myself and hold my own, more than hold my own, was at the barbershop. Among all them older guys, they get to talk about certain things, and here I go, jump right in on them. But how does all that then translate into a YouTube channel? Well, this is just my observation, having a formal background in media and realizing how media has evolved as it has, at least in the 25 years since I've been out of the newspaper business. We have a medium like YouTube or Facebook or Vimeo. Those are the ones that come to mind, at least. And then I know that there's some other ones, but YouTube being number one. You have an opportunity to communicate to an audience, to share your thoughts, to share your views, to share yourself among the world. And in that respect, it gives you an opportunity to really come out of your shell if you're in that type of a shell. I would venture to say that those individuals who have seen me from a distance will tell you that I'm very much to myself. And I have a look or an aura about me in that I'm unapproachable, in that you want to walk up to and say hello to me, and I look like I might just walk away from you. I have been guilty on many occasions, walking right past people that I knew and didn't even recognize them. You might make the example of Jesus. He walked right past his apostles, He's focused on this mission. He's about his father's business. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to say I'm about my father's business, but I can tell you that I oftentimes would be guilty of being very focused on something, and very focused, you may say, with blinders, not looking to the right and to the left, thinking about doing what I need to do at that moment. But I have no problem with, obviously, if you follow the Get Geezer channel long enough, you'll see that I have no problem with communicating my thoughts. I will say this though, in the beginning, I think I'm going to say this. I think one of the problems that folk have is they're concerned about how they will look on camera, how they would, how they sound, how people would react to them, and I think the YouTube audience is sophisticated enough to where I think there's an audience for everyone. It's just a matter of, I think, the algorithm matching what you've got to offer with what others are looking for. I recall when I first started recording content for the Get Geezer channel, I used a video recorder that I used. It was a near professional grade video camera, at least back in 2010, 2011. I'd used that camera to promote books that I'd written and or published. And I started with that. But one of the things that I had a problem with was, I actually did have a problem talking into that camera for whatever reason. But I got over it. And it wasn't about nerves or anything like that, but for whatever reason, I couldn't translate the thoughts that I had to the camera. And so I would do this. I'd scribble down notes. Well, that's not the page of notes though, but I'd scribble down things like this, as you can see here, and I'd refer to them. But one of the things that I've tried to do in many of my uploads is that I try to talk from what's within me. I may write down thoughts and all that, but that's just to keep me on message, on script, so to speak. Kind of reminds me when I actually hosted a podcast back in the early days on Blog Talk Radio. That show, which came out once a week on Wednesday nights, had peaked at number 3 among all the shows on Blog Talk Radio. And we're talking at the time like over 25,000 shows. And here's a secret about that. I actually had a script, and I picked up using a script from another person who had a podcast. And because she would talk from a script, because it was easier to talk from a script when nobody's looking at you than if you have the video element. There's something about when you're talking from the video element, kind of like with news. That's when people deliver the news, they're looking into a teleprompter. They're looking into a teleprompter, and they're communicating to you the events of the day. By and large, that's what they do. And so what I try to do with this is I try to communicate to you what's within me, what's on my mind. And so it becomes an outlet sometimes. And I think that's what YouTube allows for people to do, to open up, to blossom. And as they become more comfortable, you see really the true person from within. At least you should see the true person from within. So I mentioned in the last few videos how I've had issues with uploading content up on YouTube, and one of the things that I realized is that maybe I need to be short with my videos, meaning that my videos need to be no more than 15 minutes. And so with that, I'm coming up on 15 minutes of recorded content. And so hopefully you got something out of it. If you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Get Geezer or in any other segment of the Get Geezer, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I'm Inwood Lane. As always, may your grind and may your hustle continue.